Very good evening and welcome to this 93rd Leadership Conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm extremely delighted to introduce my friend, a very respected leader, Dr. Arunabh Singh. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Arunabh. Good evening, Dr. Arunabh. It is such a pleasure to have you here, and we are all quite enthused about this very topic of impact of AI on the jobs. There cannot be a better moment to talk about this than this, and there cannot be a better person to talk about this. You are so passionate about this topic, especially the impact of tech, impact of innovation, and impact on the current times, especially on the jobs. I will quickly make a brief introduction of you and then hand it over back to you for your opening remarks. Please allow me to share my screen. These are WiseViews leadership conversations, and Friday 6:30 p.m. has become quite synonymous with this leadership conversation. And we have finished 92 and we are on the 93rd with a very, very young and dynamic, reputed leader like Dr. Arunabh. Let me take you through the profile. Before that, it's going to be a brief introduction and then talk by Dr. Arunabh, followed by 40 minutes of Q&A. Sometimes it'll take about 10 minutes extra. This is the handsome leader you have with you. Dr. Arunabh is the director of Nehru World School, Ghaziabad, and he is a firm believer of technology may not replace teachers, but teachers who use technology effectively will replace others who don't use it. Dr. Singh is the co-chair of FICCI Arise for Uttar Pradesh. He is a member of the School Standard Setting Committee under the NEP 2020. He is a member of Cambridge South Asia Advisory Board and a member of the prestigious British Council School. He's an ambassador of British Council School. He is an alumnus of King's College London and Hindu College Delhi University. He is quite passionate about innovation, technology, entrepreneurship, and igniting young minds. That's an amazing yet brief introduction of our interesting guest. Once again, welcome, Dr. Arunabh.
Thank you, sir.
We also have Professor Prasad, my esteemed colleague. He's also the co-moderator. He's a professor and course mentor. Otherwise, he's the director academic wing for ICFAI group. This professor and course mentor is for the online MBA program. His teaching areas are strategy and entrepreneurship. He brings with himself 3 decades of rich experience. He was an entrepreneur, he was a corporate professional, and he's right now an academic leader. All put together, 3 decades of rich experience. He holds a BTech from IIT Bombay and a PGDM from the prestigious IIM Kolkata. He published several articles, books, and presented papers in conferences, both in India and abroad. I welcome you, Professor Prasad, to this conversation.
Thank you.
What I will now do is stop sharing my screen and look forward to inviting Dr. Arunabh Singh to start the session. Over to you, Dr. Arunabh. We are all ears.
Right. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for the invitation and also for introducing me to the audience. I hope I will do justice to the time that people in the audience have taken this evening. But I will start with a disclaimer. And the disclaimer is, I am no expert on AI and ML. And also, I don't know anybody who would say that they are an expert on AI and ML, and they know everything that there is to know about it. Because this is a field that is changing just so fast that even if you knew everything about it yesterday, then maybe your information about it is kind of obsolete today. But having said that, it is something that I've been tinkering with. I know people who've been tinkering with it. And like many others, we are trying to make sense of what is changing around us. And in that context, I will share what my current understanding is of the topic. And then we go into a Q&A. I may have some answers. I may not have some answers. One thing I would want to do is the answers I don't have. We can probably ask AI if AI has answers to them and see how we can work in symphony with each other rather than looking at each other as opposites. So with that intention and that disclaimer, I request you permission to share my screen. and then we will go from there. It's a very few slides that I have. The plan is not to bore you with a PPT. Right. So, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Super. Okay. Now, before I even go inside, 10 points to anybody who can tell me where did I get my cover page image from? Where had you last seen it? Anyone who might want to have a go at it? Where is this coming from? Let's you can put this in a chat.
You can put this in the chat.
Yeah, where did you see this green strip of code the last time?
Matrix movie. Somebody mentioned Matrix movie.
Yes, Matrix movie. Yes, and it was quite fascinating, wasn't it, when it first came out? And there were parts of it that we were able to understand, and then there were those that we couldn't. But certainly, it was pretty sci-fi.
Dr. Arunabh,
yeah.
Is there any monetary incentive for such answers to your questions in future?
Yeah, I would. When you do a webinar, I will attend yours.
Thank you.
Yeah. So so we've been, as humans, we've been fascinated with technology. We've been fascinated with newer thoughts, and this is not just happening right now. I remember my mother speaking to me when she was a small child in the village that she was growing up in. She had heard of something called a transistor radio. She hadn't seen it, but she had heard of it. And she would try to imagine how a human would be sitting inside that box speaking. And when the first time she saw the box, she thought, well, it's a small box. How can a human be inside it? And she also recollects that people in the village had come to that place where the first transistor radio had arrived. She has similar recollections of the first black and white television, and then the color television, then the telephone. I was around when telephone was becoming a regular feature in homes. You would remember fax machines. Some youngsters on this webinar might not remember a device called a pager. Pager happened before mobile phones did, and some of us had those. And then a mobile phone happened. So we've seen a lot. And my wife's grandfather, who's alive, when we celebrated his 92nd birthday, I asked him, how old were you when you first saw a transistor radio? Now, his memory is failing him a bit, but he said, well, I think it was pre-independence when I had first heard of it. So the point I'm trying to make here is that as these devices came, and the internet came, and the computers came, there was always this scare of, now the jobs will go and humans wouldn't know what to do. But every time we took a leap in technology, that leap, at least so far, has led to more jobs getting created, perhaps more complex jobs getting created. So I plan to dwell on that and share with the audience today what sort of jobs may be at risk, jobs that AI can't replace, or the more accurate thing to say would be jobs that AI can't replace yet. And how does one stay relevant? I will try to at least generate some very relevant questions in the next 15 or something minutes that I have before we open this to Q&A. I think the first computing device that humans got access to in bulk was probably the calculator. Prasad, would you agree with that? It was a computing device, and then people said, you know what, accountants are going to go out of jobs. Now we have calculators. And as we know, that didn't happen. The accountants started using those calculators and started doing even more complex mathematics. So most jobs will probably just update, while there are some that are more readily at risk. So if we have to bifurcate this and say, what is most at risk? At this stage, I would say jobs that are more routine, where you come and do the exact same thing every day, every day, every day, every day. Jobs that are repetitive, they are perhaps the closest for AI to start doing, because AI is now starting to do some rather complex calculation and is able to look at much more data at the same time. So we've all heard of Tesla cars that can drive themselves, and now there are several other cars that can drive themselves as well. So they're computing a lot of data. So this is a job of a driver that is starting to take a back seat. It would perhaps take a long time before an Indian driver is at risk of a Tesla car taking its place, because it's a while before we can paint the lines on our roads. We have a lot of roads. So the drivers, at least in this generation, are safe in India. But jobs that don't require thinking or decision-making, to my understanding, are most at risk. And we are seeing this on ChatGPT as well, where it is kind of changing the way in which we are cataloging information on the internet. Before the ChatGPT, you would go to Google. There was actually a pre-Google era as well. Some people in the audience are from pre-Google era, where your modems were dial-up and you were getting 2 kbps speed. And if you got it for 1 hour consistently, then you were talking about it the next day that I got 2 kbps for 1 hour without a break. This is the pre-Google era. You're asking Jeeves. But then for the longest time now, Google has been the place where you'd go to and it would throw us a lot of different responses. And then we were looking at those PDF, we were looking at scholar.google and kind of making sense of all of that information. But now ChatGPT is saying, actually, I will do that for you and give you information which is almost conversational. It'll be good to know from the audience if there are people who've tried ChatGPT. But I've been working on it pretty much every day for the last month. I've been asking it questions, and it seems to be developing. A month back, I asked it if Jesus and Muhammad were having a conversation, then what were they talking about? So it said, well, they were born in different times, but if they were talking about, here are 10 possible topics that they were conversing on. And then I tried doing the same search last week, and then it said, no, I'm not going to answer things on religion. So it is learning as it is interfacing with humans. Yeah, if you've done something, even asked ChatGPT one question, do put it on the chat box. We know who we are speaking with. But jobs at risk, to my understanding, are data entry operators, people in manufacturing, customer service. Even right now, when you try and approach a company for customer service, most often you are interfaced with a bot. And only when your query is very specific or very peculiar is when you then go to a human. Transportation, people in retail. I don't know if you've used Blinkit or one of the other services where you're not speaking to a human anymore. You're just speaking to an algorithm, and your Alexa at home is ordering things for you, and Siri is ordering. So some retail jobs will perhaps be at risk. A lot of administrative jobs, clerical jobs, some financial analysis, stuff like this is perhaps most ready to go to AI. But if all of this is going to AI, then what are these people going to do? And we'll talk about this in the last 5 minutes of my monologue, if you're still here. So yes, this threat is real for people who are not learning or who are themselves bored of the jobs that they are in because it's mundane. Going to jobs that are still far away from being replaced by AI. And as I was thinking of this, I went to ChatGPT and asked it this question: what are jobs that AI can't replace? So it gave me responses like healthcare, teachers, creative people, social workers, counselors, business leaders, executives, people in research, scientists. So as it was populating that entire list of professions that AI is thinking it is far away from replacing, I realized that all of these jobs were actually jobs that were talking about human creativity, emotional intelligence, and complex problem solving. These were the threads that were common amongst all these jobs that are furthest from getting replaced by AI. And we've seen this in the pandemic. Previously, one thought that you put a child in front of computer and the child is going to learn themselves. Professor Sugata Mitra won the TED Prize for this. Sudhakar has got
I'm just wondering, are you changing the slides? We are not able to see the change in slides.
No, I was just populating one at a time. Are you able to see when I make the change?
I'm still at the matrix.
Oh, are you? Okay, now I've been changing the slides.
Now it is changing.
Okay, that's strange. Thanks for pointing it out.
Fine.
So what I'll do is I'll just let them stay like this. Seems like when I'm going in the slideshow mode, then these were the two slides that I had used before that. Thank you for pointing that out. Right. Okay. So let's stick with this for right now. Technology is imperfect, especially when you need it the most. So yes, complex problem solving, and one thought that when children, you give them exposure to technology and they would learn themselves, and the pandemic came, and the pandemic taught both the professors and teachers at school that is not true. You put humans in front of computers, they don't learn by themselves. The human empathy, the empathy of a teacher, of a coach, of a guide is important for the human brain. And as students have come back, okay, please repeat all the slides again. Okay, you can take a screenshot of it. Maybe I'll just send them over to everybody and you can have a look at it later. So I haven't really used a lot of text on my slides. Okay, so right. So if you are in a job that doesn't require creative thought or doesn't require emotional intelligence, or you're not solving complex problems, then you should be thinking about how do you upskill yourself and get there, effectively staying afloat in times to come. But Shudit, don't worry about it. We'll make sure that you have the slides. So my learning from all of what I'm seeing around is how do you stay relevant? Would be we need to develop skills that allow us to stay ahead of the learning curve. An example would be, while the world is still debating on should ChatGPT be made legal or be made illegal, at the school that I work at, all the teachers have been orienting themselves on ChatGPT, with the idea being before our students outdo us and use it, we need to understand the tool ourselves. And there was this orientation that we were doing, and we weren't even calling it training, because for training I had to be an expert, but I wasn't. So we were doing this orientation, and I asked ChatGPT, can you make us lesson plan for grade 11 business studies chapter 9 to teach it in 40 minutes and include discussion and reflection? And I pressed enter. So it started with the name of the chapter 9 of business studies grade 11, and then created a 40-minute lesson that would also include group discussion and reflection. And of course, the business studies teacher wasn't so happy about it. And I wouldn't have been if I was her, that now a machine can do this. We are not yet talking about the efficacy of that lesson plan, but for a lot of teachers out there, that would have been a big support to have a tool that can assist them in planning their lessons. You could further go on and ask it, give me resources, point my students in the direction of some more open-ended questions. But that is not to say that it is not going to impact how we understand teaching and learning right now, because this is how we've been assessing children, right? We've been giving them long essays and asking them to submit responses. Now ChatGPT is able to do this with very little effort. So how do you stay relevant is a question that you should be asking yourself. And my answer is develop skills, gain experience in project management, specifically this. To work with a team of humans and to lead a group of humans is something which will take time, even if ChatGPT starts to do it. And stay up to date, know what artificial intelligence is doing, what it is capable of. Try out some of these tools and start to use them in your day-to-day life as well. Harness it. It's a energy. Just like fire. You can either use fire to heat up your food and eat, or you can light up your house on fire and have a problem with it. So we need to look at it as an energy, as a resource, and learn to live with it. My final message to each one of you, the end would be, let me try and, okay, would be to dream big and be brave. That is something that I think young entrepreneurs, young professionals should be looking at doing, and don't try and not slag behind your screen, especially that some of you are working from home. I was having this conversation with an ex-student who came on the alumni meet, who was working with a big MNC, and said, well, I've been working in this MNC for 2 years now, and I've never been to office. So I just work from home. And I said, how many hours a day do you really work on your 8-hour shift? And he said, sir, usually it's about a couple of hours of work. And then I said, so what do you do with the rest 6? To which he very honestly replied, I play games, I watch Netflix. Life is good. I don't have to work much. And to him, I said, well, you know what? You're wasting the most precious time of your life. Why don't you upskill yourself? Go to something like Coursera, or there are a lot of other mass online open courses, and learn something new. And to all people here who are youngsters or who are in mid-career positions, who are not leaders of their teams yet, and even those who are, it's never too late to learn. So keep that hunger going. Stay curious. Stay hungry. Thank you very much for allowing me the freedom to overshoot my 20 minutes by a few minutes. Thank you.
That was interesting, Dr. Arunabh. Thank you very much. You have rather provided a very cool take on what's going to happen. I'm sure everyone has enjoyed the slides and the way that you have taken us through. This navigation is rather different for us. Generally, all the speakers would start on like a fire and then lit up everyone. But you have actually taken us through a cool navigation of this entire thing, a rather hot topic, actually speaking. I'm sure this is the calm before the storm when we begin the Q&A. And in the Q&A, you will definitely see very good questions. We have already some questions with us. So ladies and gentlemen, friends who are present around the screen, I welcome all of you once again to this 93rd Leadership Conversation. All the leaders from variety of industries, from academics and from other walks of life over there. We see they are from all towns of the country, as well as couple of them from abroad who have stayed little too early or too late in their nights and are listening to this conversation. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining to listen to Dr. Arunabh Singh. Dr. Arunabh has painted a very, very simplified picture of the true picture of the impact of AI and what are the jobs that are going to be replaced sooner and faster, more likely to be replaced, and what are the areas in which the human involvement will be most sought after and they will not be replaced very soon. You can't talk beyond, say, 15, 20 years at any point in time henceforth. Even that's a big stretch. Your predictions and your statements will have to have a limit of extension on in terms of projection. But largely what is happening is your repetitive jobs, your mechanical kind of jobs, your routine jobs, jobs that do not require any ingenuity or thinking or decision making are going to be the first ones to be replaced. And the jobs that involve creativity, problem solving, empathy, what is called bonding, all these roles and jobs will definitely will stay, and we will have to make sure that our position on the entire value chain goes up with our upskilling. And with upskilling, I'm sure we'll stay relevant. And when we stay relevant, we are obviously ahead of the curve. Super. So that's the summary of these opening remarks presented by Dr. Arunabh Singh, our learned friend. And ladies and gentlemen, please hold your guns. You can raise your hand, but your questions will be taken live in the second cluster of questions when I come back. Before that, I request Professor Prasad to start the cluster number 1. And this cluster, once we complete this cluster, we'll come to cluster number 2. Professor Prasad, over to you.
Thank you, Professor Rao. In fact, one of the first things I did on seeing this topic was to go to ChatGPT and put in exactly the same title and see what it responded to. And pretty much like what you've said. I think it comes into that, but human connection is another aspect that it did mention in terms of what humans can do and what AI cannot do. So from there, we go to the first question in this cluster. And that from your life journey, what are the lessons you'd like to share in the context of this topic?
So as I'm speaking to people about it, there are some who are absolutely negating. There are people in the chat who are talking about how Google's not happy with it, or it's Google's open source, or while there are some who are saying this is the future. I personally feel we are rearranging how we access information and catalog it. And then when you use AI along with ML, and that's how they're usually being used, artificial intelligence, ML being machine learning. So machine is learning, once it is done, it is learning to do it again and again when that's the exact circumstances presented to it. So it's safe for me to say right now that while AI would help humans to do what humans can do, and more of what humans can do, but it's a long way ahead before AI can do what humans have not done yet, where there is no precedence of that happening. So that's my nutshell understanding of the era of technology that we are getting into. And like any change, it's going to be a bell-shaped curve. Some would be very early adapters of this tech, while some for the longest time would say, no, it doesn't work for me. There is this one human that I know who doesn't have a mobile phone. He's an accomplished man, doesn't keep a mobile phone. He says, I have a phone at home, and that's all I use. He also has a fax machine. But I don't know if he knows another person who also has a fax machine now. AI can do what humans can do maybe someday, but it can't do what humans haven't done yet.
Excellent. So I think what we're talking about, something where there's a lot of debate about how quickly certain things can come up. It has taken maybe 1998 to perhaps, when the first ChatGPT thing came up, for us to move from the paradigm of Google to ChatGPT. And essentially both of them change the starting points of what kind of work that we are going to do thereafter.
Yes. I was trying to explain it to my 6-year-old daughter of what ChatGPT is. And so she hears me say, talk about it. And then she says, okay, so Papa, it's like a much more complex Alexa. And I said, well, that's a reasonable summary for a 6-year-old to come up with. But her understanding wasn't far from the truth. There was another time, she came to me asking me for the meaning of a word. And I said, well, I wonder what the meaning of this word is. Where would you find this answer? And I was hoping she's going to say dictionary. And she said, okay, I'll go ask Siri. So the world that these kids are growing up in, and some of our young people on the conference are growing up in, is already a very different way. So they are natives of this thought or this age. And I'm sure they would find there very good ways of harnessing this tool that is available to them.
Very interesting, because I think, that leads us to the next question. The way, youngsters look at, or, what we see as human intelligence in youngsters is different from what we see as human intelligence in people of maybe 3-4 decades back. So they won't waste their time trying to go through all that evolution. They'll directly come to, ChatGPT or perhaps Google today or Alexa, and then do that. Yeah. So the question here is, what are the aspects of human intelligence which differentiate it from artificial intelligence? It's slightly, I'm adding a couple of more questions to it to make it more contextual. First is, how sustainable are these differences? I mean, for instance, we saw this time gap between Google and ChatGPT, and with technology going at the pace that it is, and Andy Grove's statement, I'm sure it will happen to this to software also. So when is the next evolution going to take place, and what's happening right now? I think the pace may be faster. So if you look at it and put it into the context of what is human intelligence for youngsters as differentiated from what it is with respect to us, and then differentiate it from AI. So how would the response to that be? I mean, I'll just add something more to the question. For instance, if children start at that particular age, and they do a Google search for it, and if ChatGPT is giving them the answer, then the skill set which are needed to get to ChatGPT's answer is something which is not there, and they start here. So how do you define that, and how do you differentiate it with respect to the future? Perhaps 20-30 years later, none of us would be around. So
okay, if I were to do a PhD again, this question would be a good synopsis to start with. I think it's a very relevant question, and somebody this time might actually read my thesis. So change is the constant is a cliche. We've come to we all grew up with this phrase, change is a constant, but the rate of change has been increasing every year or every day. The change just kept getting faster and faster and faster. So from printing press to radio, it took a long time. From radio to black and white television, lesser, and then to color television, and then to fax, and then to internet, and then to fast internet, and then to very fast internet, and then to internet on the airplane, and then on the satellite. So that rate of change has only gotten faster, and I said, expect that it will keep getting faster and faster. None of us had a wind of something like this is going to happen 2 months back. For a lot of us, it is still new, but it's here. So I don't know. First of all, I don't know. I can't forecast where are we headed next. I'm not an expert, but I feel the big difference between the artificial intelligence and machine learning intelligence versus the human intelligence is the machines are learning to give a better answer, a more contextual answer, while humans need to keep learning how to ask an even better question. And that is going to be the big differentiator between humans and the machines. Can we keep asking even better questions? And I've said this before, a great classroom is not a classroom in which every child can give answers to all the questions that teacher can ask. A great classroom, a greater classroom is that where a student comes up or many students comes up with questions that haven't been answered yet. And for the teachers to have the courage to stand in the classroom and say, actually, I never thought of it. Maybe we can think together, or maybe there is just no answer to this yet. So we need to keep asking better questions.
Great. I think, there is some sort of a frame there about the direction in which to take the classroom. And hopefully, I think teachers will start working on that. And I guess also that to ask good questions, some of this, what you normally call in a PhD as literature review and all that is already done. And how you get there, whether it is with ChatGPT, without ChatGPT, is also a big question, given the proclivities of the kind of diversions that one has, and therefore the ability to which one gets into that. I think very intriguing stuff. I move on to the next question, and this is more specific to those who are in their 20s. So the question is, how can we grow in our 20s and make it bigger than with this rat race of AI?
Okay, this answer is going to be controversial. Some people will not like it. And I go back to my elder daughter this time. So she's 8 years of age, and her mother was telling her what she had to do on the Saturday. So she heard her mother and then said, "Mummy, what is the point of a Saturday if we still have to work on a Saturday?" and I usually wouldn't butt in the mother and daughter conversation, but at that instance I did. And I said, you know what, darling? We work on Saturday, we work on Sunday, and we work on our birthday. Work is something that we do every day. We challenge our brain to get sharper and to solve more questions and to create more questions. Now, this little 8-year-old didn't really understand why the father got agitated on her not wanting to work on a Saturday. But my advice to the people in this audience in 20s would also be, stretch yourself, stretch your comfort levels, get out there, try and learn something new. Steve Jobs would say that the reason why you have different fonts on computer is because he was taking an extra credit of calligraphy while he was in college. He didn't need to. He didn't even complete that degree, but he was a curious brain. So stay curious and stay hungry, and certainly stretch your boundaries. Would be my advice to you. And this is something I sometimes see our young professionals kind of slacking in. While we're able to see a lot of very big dreams of turning our startups into unicorns, but we need to put our heart and soul into it and work towards it. There's a big difference between dreaming big and aspiring big. When you aspire big, you work towards that vision. So upskill yourself and think more.
It's an excellent suggestion. And I wonder, in terms of there will be a lot of people who will take up this suggestion. And given the younger generation, which has seen how productive or unproductive the previous generation has been with its life and its goals, there'll also be a lot of question marks about, what I should not do. And the rest of the crowd, the ones who don't aspire, what's going to happen to them, and how this difference is going to work out with respect to disparities, etc., is also a big question here. I'm just leaving it at that question. I mean, please feel free to respond to it.
So, there was a newspaper article that came a couple of weeks back on the distribution of wealth in the country, and it went viral as to how so few people command control over so many resources. So this is not new. This has been true for every generation. There are some who break the glass ceiling and move forward, who learn something new and move forward rather rapidly. And then there are those who stay happy with what they have. And both ways of living are absolutely fine. We've all heard of that joke of that person going to a fisherman and telling him, why are you sleeping in the afternoon? Why don't you fish more? And you would have ships and then you would be able to rest. And the fisherman saying, what else am I doing right now? So there are going to be some people who will have aspiration, and then there are some who don't have as many. So, but know the choice that you're making. It's most important to know the choice that you're making. But remember, if you are dreaming big, then it'll be good to add effort to that dream. Dream without an effort is just a dream. Dream with effort is aspiration. Is my short answer to this question.
I think lots to think about. So here, I think I'm getting into a question which is more into schools. So the question from the member is, what competency should we develop amongst our children to prepare them for the future? And how should we go about doing it? There is this kind of, feeling among parents that children should not become irrelevant, studying things which make them irrelevant. So what should we do? That's the question.
There is, okay, I will answer it in two parts. And first is this big debate that has been going on between recall. Do we really need to recall all this information when this information is omnipresent and everybody's handheld devices has pretty much access to equal information? And my answer to that is yes, that information and that recall is going to stay relevant. But there is a big difference between rote memorizing something and understanding and accommodating that in your brain. In the third Upanishad, it is mentioned as smriti, where you have recollection, but you understand what you are recollecting. So first of all, rote memorization needs to move towards smriti. So we need to allow our children the luxury of understanding what they're being asked to memorize. For example, I think all of us have grown up remembering tables. 2 1 the 2, 2 2 the 4, 2 3 the 6, so on and so forth. Now, very few would have had teachers who would have said, what you are really saying is 2 2s are 4. 2 3s are 6. Did you understand that? Why? So we were memorizing that phrase of 2 2s are 4, 2 3s are 6, but only very few had teachers in their classroom who were helping them dissect and make sense of what was being learned. Or all of us learned trigonometry. Few had teachers who would talk to them about what is the practical implication of trigonometry and how trigonometry as a word comes from three-sided objects. So one thing we certainly need to do is allow our children to make more sense of the world around them, and wherever possible at their pace. But most importantly, we need to keep our children curious. Many years back, there were these boys of grade 4 who came to me with a question, and the question was, sir, are there crocodiles bigger than our school bus in a river in Africa? And I said, boys, I have no idea what the answer is, but come to me tomorrow and I will try and find out. So I did try to find out. And yes, this one boy who was claiming that there are crocodiles bigger than the school bus was right. There were crocodiles bigger than the school bus. So the next day they came to me. I was standing outside on the school gate as they were leaving school. And I told them, you know what, surprisingly, there are crocodiles bigger than school bus. So we got talking, and then they said, okay, fine. Now you give us a question. So whatever random question would have come to my mind, I gave it to them. And they were grade 4. Till the time these kids passed school, almost every day or every week, we would have this exchange of questions. And truth be told, eventually I was running out of questions to ask them. The responsibility of the teacher in the classroom is to keep the student engaged and keep the student curious. And responsibility of the student also is try and not take shortcuts. And if you do take shortcuts, then go a long way. So if you're going to use ChatGPT to write your assignment, then let us explore things that are not even part of the course curriculum and make sense of them. To teachers who are going to face students writing their assignments with ChatGPT, how about we change the format and say, I'm absolutely fine that you use ChatGPT to write your assignment, but now I want you to come and defend that answer in front of the entire classroom. The likes of Oxford and Cambridge have had open book examinations for hundreds of years now. So they have not been hesitating in saying, you bring your entirety of knowledge into the classroom, you reel it in a suitcase, but then I'm going to ask you a question and allow your brain to construct a narrative around that. So I think those would be some responsibilities for teachers and students alike.
Excellent. I think stand on the shoulders of giants. That's what Google Scholar says. And I think that's where the conversation leads us to. So this also, builds up onto the point that curiosity is connected to creativity. And I think it also leads us to the point of imagination, which is where humans can really excel, and how to build up that imagination, which is also realistic, because that's what the incident that you have been narrating, I think it points to that. So it's nice to imagine things which are more likely to happen, and which then we can get into practicality. I think excellent. I think that those are skills that we need to build in, and we need to practice that. I'll come to the last question. It's a little more specific.
And then I have a question for you as well.
Absolutely.
So
Please go ahead. Yeah.
No, I'll hear Dr. Prasad's question, and then I'll ask him a question of my own.
Yeah.
Okay.
So given that forecasting is so difficult with so much of entropy, the whole thing is expanding at a completely different pace. And so given that forecasting is difficult to conduct, to correctly, how accurate would this forecast of jobs that we are all trying to arrive at currently, which we are trying to get some grasp of, I mean, though we may not. This is one of the questions from the audience.
All right. I think that it's a fantastic question. And my answer to that is fairly straightforward. India doesn't just live in 2023. There's part of India that lives in 1900s. There's part of India that lives in 1800s. And there is also parts of India that is already living in the future. I had a couple of visitors from a developed country, and I got talking about Blinkit and how the order would arrive within 10 minutes, and they couldn't believe me. So I did order a packet of chips, and 7 minutes, and the packet of chips was in their hand. They hadn't seen technology and financial services and retail like that. So we are living in a wide spectrum of time. Will any of these jobs cease to exist in our lifetime? I think the answer to that is no. There are still people needed to write letters for people who can't write them, and then put them in a letterbox and post. There are still typewriters outside civil courts. So immediate answer is no, there is no job that is going out of work. But the question is, what kind of jobs are increasing in value, and where is this world shifting towards? So we can either be at the cutting edge of that and become more valuable for our companies or for our ecosystems, or we can choose to pick up tasks that is more readily being done by machines. Like with ChatGPT, I think the biggest problem would be to those people who were writing on hire, freelance people who were writing blog articles for others, people who were writing text for websites, and now ChatGPT is doing it for free. But will even that job cease to exist? My answer to that is no. Because intelligent people out there would start to use ChatGPT in a better manner and produce even better writing. So we would still need skills to be able to use this tech. And those who develop these skills will stay at work.
So I think, we have this advantage of the disparity in India, the Bharat versus the India. And I think this bottom of the pyramid thing, which will take us far more longer to traverse this. And if we do traverse that, and which itself is both an opportunity as well as in some nature, it's a challenge. And therefore, lots of jobs will remain. I think that's the sense of what I'm getting.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So there are a few more questions, but at this stage, I'll conclude my part. There's a question that you wanted to ask.
Yes. So, when we send students into college, we've sent them with 3-hour exams where they're needing to write, and then we've checked them, and that's that. So in some ways, our assessment system is slightly safeguarded, that even if the child had used ChatGPT to write the classwork and homework, the child now needs to condense that into an answer in the assessment, the examination. But while at college, your assessments had evolved. You were allowing students to write long assignments and submit them as specimens of work. So now that these tools are writing those assignments, are creating those graphs, are doing those presentations, how do you think the higher education would adapt to this rather strange phenomena of ChatGPT and AI?
That's an excellent question. I think first assumption which a lot of people have, which is, if in my view is grossly incorrect, is that higher education is behind school education in terms of technology. This is my personal touch and feel about it. I mean,
no, it's ahead. It's much ahead.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's much ahead. So you are allowing students to create all of this stuff on computers and submit it as assignments. And that is why I'm saying that you are actually much closer to the storm than schools are.
Yeah.
Because schools are still working with notebooks.
Yeah, I am actually putting a counter to that. And what I'm trying to say is that, see, higher education is also a lot of regulation.
Yeah.
Okay, so a mass of India's higher education is nowhere near that. So if you look at what is actually getting practiced in terms of how technology is, maybe the student knows, but it comes to the system and it's allowing certain things to be done, it's way far behind. And therefore, this challenge will be even more for them. But if you come to the premier institutions, I mean, institutions which will look at all this and how would they would tend to think. I think even during the times that I was studying at, let's say IIT Bombay, the profs who were most regarded are the ones who were able to give open-ended questions. And there, I remember a particular paper that was electromagnetic fields. And then if you got an A in that, then you're regarded as something, because the prof would be like that. So you would just give a simple sentence and it would it would look so simple, but to come even to think about what direction to take would be very difficult. So forget, any of these tools at that particular stage, because it called for far more imagination from the student and a very good understanding of the assumptions of the subject. I mean, this is something that is very critical. I mean, lots of times when we do the logic of it, we always have some assumptions underneath. So if you change the assumptions, and if the student doesn't know the assumptions, they'll end up with answers which are normal, which look standard. But if you tinker with one of the assumptions, the whole thing will take a different picture. So the potential to do this is very high. And I'm sure the brains will start thinking now. A lot of very good brains in those institutions, I'm sure they'll start thinking now. And in my personal view, if I were to handle a class, I would give a lot of emphasis on imagination. I mean, beyond what ChatGPT is going to ask. So things like, okay, now you've got the summary. What kind of questions would you ask on that set? Do you have questions? Are those questions relevant to the kind of concepts which are being learned? So these are some of things which you go beyond. You start with ChatGPT and then you get into the next particular stage. The second is, okay, now you assume this is given. ChatGPT's answer is given. Use your imagination and tell me what you would do in this particular context. Slight tinkering in the context. Now, what would your answer be? So the long way to go in terms of how education needs to go. And I'm sure that a lot of very good brains will start thinking about it now that ChatGPT has hit the roads.
Thank you. That helps.
Thank you very much, Professor Prasad and Dr. Arunabh. These this first volley, the first cluster of questions with several volleys are very, very interesting. I'm sure the raised hands will remain raised. I'll now open the mics for you to speak to the leader. But I have a few questions to take first. I think in the first cluster, we have talked about a very important and in-depth assessment of its impact and what's going to happen and what is supposed to be our reaction, how do we manage these emerging systems or evolving systems. In the second, we have some application-oriented questions, which I will request Dr. Arunabh to answer. I think the impact of AI, maybe a couple of signs you can take, a couple of signals you can cite. Impact of AI in education, in HR, in medicine, in agriculture, sales and marketing, just some of these things. I mean, I've bundled all into one. They were actually independent questions. But I'll start with something. Which are the two most important mistakes to be avoided while making its AI more popular in workplace? I mean, just in case the work or the office decides to make AI very popular, in the sense we are trying to harness it in the proper way. What are the two mistakes, according to you, at this stage that we should avoid?
I'm saying while I'm going to attempt your answer, I've also given the same prompt to ChatGPT. So it's going to create an answer, and then I'm going to go back and see if the human brain and the ChatGPT were thinking the same thing. Now, my response to that is going to be, initially, when you expose people to this, they say, okay, fine, you know what? In that case, I don't need to think. If it is going to think, do all the, going to give me all the answers, then I don't need to think. And I think that would be the biggest mistake if that is how the mentality of the workforce or the organization works. On the other hand, it could be, okay, let me try and see if it can help me with asking better questions to my students. The mathematics teachers often say that there are far fewer open-ended questions in maths than there are in English. But if you were to ask ChatGPT to give you 10 open-ended questions while I'm teaching integration to 13-year-olds, it will give you some very good questions that you could open your classroom with. So if you're going to use this to advance the depth of conversation that's happening in your organization, then it's a tool. If you're going to use it to replace what earlier the human brain was doing, then it's a problem. And at least the stage at which it is right now, it gives you a decent answer, but it's not giving you a cutting edge answer of stuff that you hadn't even thought about. So that's my human response to it. But let's see what ChatGPT has said. People who've used it would know that it starts typing and it takes a little while. So it says, there are many potential mistakes that can be made when using AI in workplace, but two of the most important ones are over-reliance on AI. It can be a valuable tool in workplace, but it's also important to remember that it is not infallible. That was one point it says. And second was failure to address ethical and social implications. AI has the potential to impact society in profound ways, both positive and negative. If you start taking the answers that the system is giving as absolute truth. So those would be perhaps the biggest challenges of this. But like many other technologies, let's say the internet, we had the same conversation about internet as well, that now that all the information is available online, we would stop to think. But that didn't happen, did it? Humans are forever curious. This is who we are. So we will find more frontiers and use these, like Professor Prasad had said, stand on the shoulders of giants and move forward.
Brilliant. I think it comes back to the basic understanding that human mind is wired to actually rise above every time there is a difficulty or every time there is an opportunity. From times memorial, from human civilization, its evolution, and the industrial revolution itself, I think at every phase, I think the human excellence has risen above its previous step. And while you're considering the previous step or previous level of imagination, it seemed to be impossible. But when it had come to actually facing it, I think they had risen. And I think such is the human mind. It will always stay curious, and we will definitely overcome this. It is not to comfort the humans around the screen that we are giving this answer, but that's been the proven track record of human brain. And nobody would disagree that we are not going to keep ourselves more curious. We are not going to keep ourselves fired up with imagination and creativity. Nobody would say that. The most brilliant answer that you have given is that these systems, the ability to harness this AI, should be able to help advance our activities rather than replace our thinking. I think that's the summary of what you have mentioned. Thank you so much, Dr. Arunabh, on that. While I am going to allow Captain Prabhakar to ask his question, I will take one more before that. Captain Prabhakar, please stay there. Yes. Captain Prabhakar is from AI. That is another AI. It's called Air India. So he's a flyer. He's a pilot. So, sir, please wait.
Yes, sir.
We will give you the ATC signal. Then only you can come down.
Starting by.
Sorry. The other question is plagiarism check software in itself an AI against AI creativity? Plagiarism check software in itself an AI against AI creativity? Wow.
So technology has had a cat and mouse game perpetually. Like humans have played a cat and mouse game with themselves across ages. And now is no different. You've got technology that helps some people circumvent the existing rules. Then you will invent a technology that will help you in not allowing that to happen, and then it will repeat itself. So I'm not saying that there would ever be a finite end to this. There are tools already that help you figure out if this was a ChatGPT response. But I think when we're having this conversation, we are missing the point. Yes, we would want original questions. Yes, we would want us to stay curious. We would want to go to Mars and then beyond. But why would we not allow the child to say, yes, this was a ChatGPT response. This is the basis of my basic understanding. And now, am I able to comprehend this and develop further understanding on the topic? This is not perfect. If you go to ChatGPT, it gives you its limitation. It tells you that I could be wrong sometimes. It's 2 months old. So stick in it. See, tools will arrive, and then there would be tools to circumvent those tools, and that process will continue. If it was finite, then by now Microsoft should have been able to do a catch up on all those people who don't have license but use it. That hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, that's good, Dr. Arunabh. That's a very good answer. I think this catch up will always happen, and tools to limit the tools or tools to make the other tools more efficient or check them will always evolve, and it's a continuous cat and mouse game, as you mentioned, played by humans on machines and machines on machines themselves. Fantastic. I will now request Captain Prabhakar to raise his question. Over to you, Captain.
Yes. Good evening, Dr. Arunabh Singh. I am Captain G. Prabhakar from Air India ICFAI, the Airbus 320 family out of Hyderabad. And talking about the very big point about you picked up about the recall. Very interesting to connect with you on that is in our now Airbus training, the emphasis now on recall. They ask us to learn and to improve our training with the point of recall rather than just the rote learning. And it's very interesting to connect with that. And the 350 Airbus, which is now the big airplane in the market, we have changed the whole training standard in that by putting this recall into the thing. And there's a lot of AI in the airplane. I just want to know what kind of AI we are using in aviation. I mean, could be a very relevant question, but I thought just want to check with you.
No idea.
Okay.
I'm not an expert, but what kind of AI is being used in aviation? Okay, I just asked my ChatGPT buddy.
Okay.
So flight operations and maintenance is one. I can actually just share the screen as it types us, gives us the response. Where is it? There you go. So yeah, can you see my?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's starting to give us a response.
Okay.
And
Whoever reads
I'm not an
faster
expert, but
whoever reads faster will get an award.
but what we just experienced here is how this tool can actually get harnessed.
Okay.
Where I did not have the pressure on me to say I know everything. No, I don't. Nobody does. That human who knew everything died a long time back. And
okay.
so we don't. Yeah, but these are some ways in which AI is getting used in aviation. Now that we know all of this, is there a way that we can ask it a deeper question? I hope the point I'm trying to make, that it allows us to ask you deeper questions. That's my daughter, who we were speaking about a little while earlier.
Okay. Hello.
Who said yes? But she can't hear you. I'm on the speaker. This thing. Yeah, but she was the one who said, "Well, it's like Alexa, but only more complex." Whether I'm going to be 5 minutes. Okay.
Well, I think that answers my question. So great. It's a pleasure meeting you online, and hope to see you sometime, sir. And see you on the network. Thank you, Dr. Sudhakar. Thank you.
Thank you for what you're doing for us, sir.
Anytime, sir. Always. See you sometime.
Thank you very much. Even the ChatGPT said that autopilot system is going to assist pilots and make it much safer. I think the machine learns the several things that can be measured or difficult to measure. And from that, machine learns much faster and assists the pilots to make it even more safer. So that's a very brilliant. We got our answer.
We are far away. We are far away from the machine taking a decision on something that doesn't have a precedent, something that has never happened before. For that, you need the human brain sitting there. So for the longest time now, we've had autopilots in flights, but that hasn't stopped humans from putting other humans in the cockpit.
Amazing. Yeah, that's something which has not happened yet, is very difficult for the machine to work on. But the human mind and the human brain can actually predict and take decisions, and also by actually predicting it to some extent. But that whole process will be aided by the machine a little better based on what it has experienced. That's amazing. Thank you very much. We have another hand going up. We'll allow Mr. Arun Kaul, but I want to share something here. I've been using ChatGPT for the last 1.5 months, and every day I check in with my questions. It has been weird, from questions like, is everything tickety-boo? I asked the ChatGPT, is everything tickety-boo? It says, I'm an AI machine language tool and I don't understand what is tickety-boo. So I take the responsibility of explaining the whole thing. But Google has understood tickety-boo without any aid, whereas this one has understood a little later and said, same thing, I'm an AI machine tool language system. If you have any questions, I can answer. Everything is fine, something like that it mentioned. More or less coming around the question. If we learn to tease in a positive way, we are helping it. If we learn to tease for fun, it doesn't help anyone. But if you know how to synthesize your question, your answer that it can synthesize from the search and imagination that it already has, the answers are much better. So the other extreme which I tried is to generate a social media plan, not social media plan, a FM radio plan for Hyderabad for online MBA program of ICFAI, targeting so-and-so people with a top line budget of 20 lakhs INR. It has given the channels, it has given everything. And then we started working on it. How do we reduce the budget and still make that kind of impact and read the peak times and non-peak times based on the available data? I thought that ChatGPT is much, much better in terms of synthesizing the available information. It has, I want to concede as a human that, and we all should concede, ChatGPT has a lot of imagination already. It has a lot of creativity already. I have asked it to develop brand architecture on a vegan product company which is yet to establish its base in South India and come up with various brand lines, sub-brand names, nomenclature, and positioning strategy. It has done reasonably well. If I were a teacher, I would give it 80% of marks. Amazingly doing very well, actually. And then you need to fine tune with respect to your specific application with some native knowledge which only you would have, or some kind of gut feeling which the humans are known for. I think that I will stop at that and allow Mr. Arun Kaul to raise his question. Over to you, Mr. Arun.
Good evening, Dr. Arunabh. This has been a wonderful talk. I am really enjoying it. My question is that, there is this model of technology diffusion where you have these innovators and then followed by early adopters, then early majority, late majority, and finally the laggards. Would you like to risk a guess as to in India, how long will it take for it to reach maybe the stage of early majority or late majority in terms of years? Or do you understand my question? I want,
yes,
like the way Google became so popular, and everybody's using Google. So would you like to risk a guess? I mean, just a guess that how soon would it be? I mean, everyday thing for most of us.
I would use the data available to me to guesstimate an answer. But before I do that, thank you very much for your very kind compliment earlier. I was reading this article that ChatGPT's user base to get to the first million and then to get to the first 100 million has been the fastest of any tech that has come our way. The previous one was, I believe, Snapchat had gotten to 100 million the fastest. And now this has outdone Snapchat as well. And while Snapchat was about the primary usage of Snapchat was to send images to other people and for them to vanish after some time. This is a knowledge tool, and yet it has overtaken in terms of adoption. So my answer to that is it should take us a lot lesser time in comparison to the previous technology revolution, which was the use of just internet. But what that time is going to be is difficult to tell, because the rate of change of this tech now is just so fast. So I don't have a finite answer. And I think this is a question that even AI would not have a finite answer to.
Okay.
And I'm happy to have a go at it again with you.
Okay.
Let's ask it this question. How long before India, before majority of people in India are using ChatGPT? Okay.
It's difficult.
Yeah, it's difficult.
It's easier to predict ChatGPT's answers now.
Yes. That being said, but it's going to be far more difficult for us to be able to use this than countries where they're using one language primarily and have one context. But we don't. We are 1/5 of the humans on Earth, and we look different, we talk different, we wear different. So there is so much of a difference in our identities as well. That being said, it is here to stay.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. There's another question for which we'll have to regenerate the response, which is a similar question. So that says, what are the challenges and opportunities in making chatbot in India by using AI? In the sense, AI chatbots in India. What are the challenges and opportunities in making that?
Like I said earlier, we have so many languages, we have so many dialects of those languages, and understanding of the same word, or the Indian nod, you know, the neck nod, where we are going left, right, but we mean yes. This is what you're saying, but this is what we are the neck is doing. Now there is so much the way we communicate. So there is that challenge. But I'll tell you another realistic implication of it. I was having this discussion with this friend of mine named Azhar. Professor Sudhakar Rao might remember him. He runs a school in Bangalore. And we were talking about this webinar being conducted, and we started discussing ChatGPT. And so we generated a lesson plan. And then I asked him, would you want to convert this into another language? And the lesson plan was for environmental science. And he said, yeah, okay, let's see. Can you convert this into Urdu? It's okay, let's give it a go. So I asked ChatGPT, can you convert this lesson plan into Urdu? And it started typing me the same lesson plan in Urdu. And I sent it across to him. I said, you know what, this is the response. And he said, wow. Now this is real and now for people who are using only that language to teach, for whom most resources on the internet were useless till now because they were not written in a language that the teacher was most comfortable in. So while I don't have a finite answer, but I think I have a line of answer there.
Yeah, and that's a fine answer, if not finite, if not definite. So the evolution of AI in terms of providing solutions to us is changing quite fast. The rate of change is quite amazing, and I'm sure there are certain limitations within our society and the kind of diversity that we have. One of those is language, and I think slowly the machine is going to address that. It's a matter of time compared to other democracies or other countries, so to say. Why? Fine. I don't. I'm just picking up one or two questions on the chat box here. I don't know when the speaker was not visible. Speaker was always visible. What could be the real reason for layoffs going on in IT companies like Meta, Microsoft, Amazon, Alphabet, Spotify? Reason for layoffs?
I don't know. If I knew, I would be shorting their stocks. I don't know. I'm sorry.
Okay. Being part of education for a long time, what are the changes being done or suggested to make humans still relevant going forward? Broad question.
We need to make our students more reflective. We need to become more reflective. We can keep making the same mistake for 20 years and not reflect on it. Or we can make it once and reflect on it and be better off. And I think we need our children to reflect more. We need our children to become more mindful of the choices that they're making. If I could just do these two things for students who are at the school that I work in, I think my job would have been well done.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you very much. And the question that I asked in the beginning, before I go to Shweta Anand, is the AI in education we have to some extent addressed or discussed. AI in medicine, agriculture, and sales and marketing. Sales and marketing also you mentioned to some extent, but would you like to give an answer that envelops all these segments? A brief answer, then we'll go to Shweta Anand's question.
So my answer to these are very, very similar. Humans developed complex language to interact complex thought from one to the other. Our brains were more complex. We needed to put across complex thoughts. And we've kept evolving and evolving and evolving. And we've kept on improving our understanding of of the world that we exist in as well, and our understanding of our individuality as well. When I was doing this session with the teachers, somehow this question went to gender. And I asked, I said, okay, you know what, let's go to ChatGPT and ask it how many genders are there. We know that there is male, female, and transgender. And it gave us a list of 10 known gender identities. And then it said, well, there are more gender identities that exist as well. So the finite truth in my mind is this need to be able to connect to another human in a better manner. That stays. So we should be working towards how do we develop ourselves to be able to do that better, rather than getting into this conversation of what is this machine going to get better at. Let's hope that the machine's computing power keeps improving. When you go to NASA, they tell you that they were able to take Apollo 11 to moon with processing power that is lesser than the processor of your mobile phone. And that is the truth. So across jobs where you are using your brain to think of more complex, more creative thoughts and are transmitting it to other people, you stay relevant. Now, be it sales, be it healthcare, be it teaching, that is a common thread. I'm not sure when I go to a hospital, if I'd be happy with a robot nurse giving me medicine. I would still rather have a human do that for me.
Okay. Shweta, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. A very good evening to one and all. Sir, I'm asking this question knowing that you have already answered that I don't know, but still your opinion matters to me because I'm intrigued by the pattern which is going on specifically in the IT industry. There was a hiring spree, which was coupled with the Great Resignation movement, and now we are seeing a lot of layoffs going on in this big IT giants. So, what is the brain? What is the logic which is going behind these AI hubs, which is taking place? I just want to know your opinion. What is your thought process? Because ultimately, it affects the human psyche. So what's your thought process, and what could be the probable reason, or it's just a blind bandwagon which is going on?
Ma'am, the beauty of the industry that you speak about is that it often has given us results that nobody's been able to understand. Like right now, you're talking about layoffs. 6 months back, you were talking about not being able to find people and salaries doubling every 6 months.
Exactly. Yeah, right.
So there seems to be this infinite curve that keeps going up and down in the industry that you talk about. I'm not an expert on the industry. I don't want to attempt an answer of what is the possible reason for the current layoffs. Maybe Dr. Rao would find somebody who has those answers in the next session that they're doing in this series. It's not me though. I'm sorry, I don't have an answer for you.
All right, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Better classrooms or greater classrooms are those which have many moments of truth like this, that we will have the next session where we'll come back to you with a better answer. I think participants asking questions like this for which there are no answers is probably the highest moment of a transactional freedom that we have, or a spirit of inquiry that we promote in our educational institutions. And this is just one knowledge sharing session where all of us are part of it, and for free we are joining, and for free we are learning, and we are only trying to improve the collective net worth of knowing a little bit, trying to reason it out a little bit, and try and go back and apply in our workplace, both at home or in our offices. So that's the whole purpose, and that's what Learning for Leadership is. And we've been doing this over and over again every Friday. Thank you, friends around the screen, for joining this amazing session. I have one question to somebody who is joining every week and we are not able to talk to that person. And the name of the person is Georgia Avila. Is Georgia Avila a human? I don't know. is Georgia Avila a chatbot? Some of us from ICFAI have written. Georgia Avila can respond, or Professor Prasad can respond. Because what Georgia Avila is doing is do you want a copy of this transcript? I'm recording with this app so-and-so, and I was planning to email it, or this has come from Zoom. If it is from Zoom or it's a chatbot deployed by Zoom to take note of what is being discussed, we would definitely like to have a transcript and make a summary out of it. But if Professor Prasad knows, he can answer. Yeah, we cannot hear you, Professor.
Yeah, I've been noticing this. I have no definite response to that, but I think the way the link is given, it looks more a bot than a human.
Yeah, it's a bot than a human, and in the warfare language, it's a Trojan horse, perhaps.
Possible. You know, when you go to ChatGPT or some of these other AI tools, and it asks you to prove that you're a human, do you feel funny that a machine is asking you to prove that you are a human?
Yeah,
because I do.
So it has asked me to prove that I'm a human, and I clicked on it, it went through. I don't know what did it notice in me. It's a normal screen that I have. It did not check into my retina to prove that I'm human. But anyway, that went through peacefully. But yes, that question is intriguing sometimes. I wanted to raise this, or I wanted to flag it, having noticed it for a couple of times, because we are all living with this ecosystem for quite some time, and I need to know who are all there. And it is discourteous not to acknowledge the presence of someone on the list of participants. So I thought I'll make this a room for interaction if that person is here. But if it's chatbot also, which is taking note, you're most welcome to learn, and we are happy to accommodate you every single time you come. And please help us with the notes, and our email IDs you can pick up from the panelists, which are already fed to the Zoom machine. It's easier for you to send this transcript to 3 of us, and then we'll in turn share it with the rest of all of us. So that's fine. I think we are at 8:01. While Dr. Arunabh has given up on his dinner, I need to keep in mind one important thing, that he has to go back to his daughter. I mean, that's the single most important reason for me to conclude this whole conversation now. We'll have to. This discussion will happen. There are more questions than the answers we will ever have. We will keep writing. We will share some questions to Dr. Arunabh so that he can reply by email, and we'll keep in touch, and we'll attempt to write a summary with or without Georgia Avila and share with Dr. Arunabh. Once he clears that, we'll put it on the archives for the benefit of everyone and anyone who can visit our archives of online MBA program. Just for the benefit of those who have joined a little late, Professor Prasad, am I jumping? Am I not asking you that question? Do you have any last question, kind of question?
At this moment, I don't have. I think there's a discussion which has been happening, and we have, I think, come to some stage.
Correct. Thank you so much for that. So the link for archives is also shared here. Others can make a note of it, and then you can visit all these videos as well as text summaries. Very well landscaped text summaries are kept there, and we publish books. All these summaries are compiled, and we publish books. Those books also will be shared with you. This is just one of the opportunities of learning for all of us here. So that's what it is. So just to summarize this big conversation, a very important conversation, more of questions and less of answers. And these questions should help us find answers every day and make sure it is going to be relevant for us. The human journey from various inventions has moved slower in the past and faster in the recent past, and it's going to be much faster, unimaginably probably faster in the near future, with the advent of variety of technologies, including AI and ML. Any job that is done repeatedly, the machine is going to be fed, and machine will learn to identify patterns, and that is called machine learning. And machine learning will give cues on which we are building everything else, which is also called artificial intelligence. When you apply this artificial intelligence to a variety of requirements in education, to other applications of industry, you will have several nomenclature come up to describe that. Without confusing or without complicating it, what can be done better by understanding a pattern that is better left to the machine, and artificial intelligence is the answer there. However, those jobs which cannot be replaced are the jobs where creativity is fully loaded, imagination is available or required, empathy is required, which only humans can do. And I'm sure leadership is fueled by empathy, and therefore empathy is going to be at premium all the time in our daily function of jobs, whether you are an entrepreneur or an entrepreneur, whether you are a father or a mother at home or in society, whatever level that you are, you're going to be a leader, and therefore empathy is going to drive your leadership. It is the single most unassailing factor to measure leadership, and therefore that's a very important plus, which the machine cannot have and only humans can. And therefore that is something I think we should reverse the game and build ourselves very strongly, very strong on empathy, very high on empathy. I think that will help us stay stronger and be very, very different from what the machines can otherwise do or probably will do. Now, the kind of prediction that we have made in the past is no signal to the kind of prediction that we are able to make for future, because the rate of change has been very, very different. The quantum of change also has been very, very different. We have always started with the scare of losing jobs with the advent of every new technology and moved into leaping along with the technology, and we started creating more jobs, rather more meaningful jobs. In fact, a job that can be replaced is not a job worth keeping. I think we should rise above, upskill, as Dr. Arunabh has mentioned, and then stay relevant and stay ahead of the learning curve. These are pertinent, very, very important questions. We are not always at risk. We are always at risk if we don't learn ourselves, if we don't push ourselves out of our comfort zones. Isn't that the purpose of human existence? I think we are trying to game everything, and then we are becoming lazy, and then we are becoming non-imaginative, and then we are trying to fall into shortcuts. As Dr. Arunabh has mentioned, if you go for shortcuts, you have a long way to go. And therefore, shortcuts is not what we are trying to do. So change is inevitable. Again, Dr. Arunabh has mentioned, change is inevitable, but transformation is a conscious choice. In this context, whether you embrace the change or not, whether you change along with the ongoing change or not, the change will take place. It is going to throw you behind. But transformation is what happens in you. Transformation is an alignment with the change that's happening external to you. And that transformation is a conscious choice that the humans can make, and they will have to make. In the terms more like, how do we harness the emerging AI? How do we harness and make it useful for our benefit? It's like a fire, as the example was given by our esteemed leader. The fire can be used to heat up your food and various other things, but the fire can also actually fire up your house and demolish that. So it is upon us, and we should learn to use it. So learning to learn has always been the constant theme, not just now, but over the last, say, 100 years or so. We need to learn from every new source that is available, every new change that is taking place around us. The other thing is to dream big and be brave, and we need to develop the skills. I think that's a fantastic summary and opening presentation he has made, and several questions have been answered. Several beautiful answers have come, definitely. And what humans haven't done yet, machines will find it difficult to do, at least for a predictable long time to come. The question of human intelligence versus AI is a question that we should pivot and say it is human intelligence and AI, and not just one alone. Machine learning machine actually learns to give better answers, but humans must learn to answer better, ask better questions. Similar to the example that you were given for the classrooms, where more questions remain unanswered. So teachers also, by implication, will have to find nuances by changing the game to evaluate the answers that are copied from machines or assisted by machines. that is also going to fire up the imagination of teachers. The future of teaching, the future of learning is going to change drastically, and there's a premium placed with imagination all the time. Back in the days, even 25, 30 years back, open-ended books were there for exam systems. Questions I'm going to ask are not available on Google, kind of challenges the faculty members have given all the time. And now they're going to say that I can bust through the chat GPT answer. I'm a very different prof. And the testing is not on what you can collect from chat GPT. It is going to be AI assisted solution plus something which you will have to apply, and probably the education system and the faculty and the teachers will move towards that. So the advice given by Dr. Arunabh to those in 20s is basically to stretch yourself, come out of your comfort levels, learn, stay curious, and stay hungry. So this is what is that, and challenge our brains to come up with more questions. That's a fantastic advice, because we are noticing that there are several people who are falling for the nomenclature and the fads, like being a founder and being an entrepreneur is great. But in reality, when they work on their startups, there's no real fire plus passion and responsibility combined to work there. They will always be needing those experienced people as mentors to succeed, but that's actually not happening in all the cases. And all these is part of the lessons that we have, because there is a difference between dreaming big and aspiring big. When you put effort, a realistic effort on your dreams, then it is aspiration. And that's a fantastic point made by Dr. Arunabh. And it's our choice that we combine this effort to the dream. And I think we will be able to cross those debates of 10% of people having 90% of wealth and all those things. We should only take the positive notes out of such comparisons and tables that are available for our data that's available for us to inspire us, and we should aspire for something being very, very big. With availability of information and technology, languages, and everything working in our favor, probably information is available to all of us. Democratization of knowledge is also going to be available to all of us, but the premium again will be placed on what is called understanding and applying what you have learned or picked up from the information bots that you have. So staying curious, Smriti, as you have mentioned, staying curious and working beyond the recall of information is going to be the way forward. Traditional jobs and modern jobs are going to coexist for some time, because we have a huge diversity of people, not just in this country, even in other countries as well, but more visible in this. But the shifts are those that we are supposed to notice and start working in that direction. For example, when ChatGPT is available, the debate of whether it is to be banned or not is the last question to be asked, but we need to go inside out and test it out and understand what are the possibilities and where we can use it for our benefit. So there are some schools like Nehru World School, which has already started using it, oriented the teachers and the students using it for a better purpose. But I'm sure that tinkering and creativity is the value addition as leaders that all of us are going to make to these available systems that we have. It is a challenge, and it is going to be addressed only with that kind of passion to bring change in our level of contribution to the work that we are handling. I think the human glory will be written large on the contributions that all of us in our respective fields make by upping what is called curiosity, by upping our own contribution with respect to creativity and tinkering. These are some of the important points that we have. But one last point I want to mention is that a mind or a student that stays reflective and mindful, I think that's what we need to promote in our educational institutions. The need to connect to another human being, we should do much, much better. These are a few more points which are mentioned by Dr. Arunabh. It is an amazing session, a session that has started with a cool manner, composed manner, typical of Dr. Arunabh. I have heard him in many places in India and in London as well. I had an opportunity of listening to his panel discussion on an international stage as well. He's an amazing leader. I have always admired Dr. Arunabh and his ideas. So he conducted and navigated this Q&A very well and given very fine answers, which are more mature and more opening for further action for all of us if we have made note of these questions. It's an amazing session, and I wanted to thank Dr. Arun. I can't thank you enough, Dr. Arunabh, for your time, expertise, and energy and involvement that you have put in this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. It has been an enlightening conversation for me as well. And I think we just need to have more of these and stay curious and stay hungry.
Yes, I think we should stay curious and stay hungry. All of us, that's the message we take home. And before closing, I want to thank all the members and the leaders who have joined from varieties of domains like education, technology, film and media. I have seen some from IT, a variety of reasons, a variety of domains that I have seen. Thank you all for joining. Do join us again next Friday. That is on 24th. We are going to talk about the growth mindset on 24th of Feb, Friday next. Mr. Vivek Verma is going to join us for the conversation. He's the leader who has agreed to speak with us next. So at 6:30 p.m. on Friday, 24th of Feb, we'll see you. In the meantime, read more about AI. More than reading, start working with all the valuable tools that are made available to us, starting with ChatGPT, and try and beat it, try and use it for better application. And you will really enjoy
growth mindset is what you need to stay ahead of AI. So I'm really glad that that's happening. I would tune in and watch the next conversation as well. Very well played. Thank you.
Amazing. Yes, that's the way you very beautifully you're connected. Growth mindset is required to stay ahead in the era of AI. But the title of the topic is From Failure to Success. It's a huge bandwidth there. From failure to success, the power of a growth mindset. That's what Mr. Vivek Verma is going to talk about. And my best wishes to all the students of Nehru World School, your amazing teachers who are developing entrepreneurs and responsible individuals for the society. I'm also thankful that you're developing wonderful students who universities like us can consume. When I say consume, when we can take them to the next level of learning. Thank you very much for producing such wonderful students. Be very happy and be very, very joyful at your work like you are. We'll meet you in person next time. I'm very sorry for almost compelling you to delete your dinner plans tonight. Sorry for that.
Thank you.
So,
thank you for including me in this conversation.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Thank you, Professor Prasad, for joining. We'll see you next week at 6:30 p.m. Friday, February 24th.